Hello everyone and welcome back to the Magnus Invitational. We are at game 3 and Magnus is down 1 point, so he needs to win the game to get back into the match. And if Ding wins the game, then it's game over for Magnus. Ding will win the match and face Hikaru in the finals. So without further ado, let's see if Magnus sticks with what he was playing, the London system, or he goes for something else. So we have d4 by Magnus again. We have knight to f6, knight f3, d5, and f4 once again. The London system is on the board. We have e6 by Ding and knight b to d2. So the usual Magnus stuff. We have c5 and now e3. Queen to b6, putting pressure on the b2 pawn, and now rook to b1, defending. We have bishop to d6, and it's a position that's reached quite often. Knight to c6, bishop to d7 are all known moves here, but bishop to d6 is a new move. So as of move 6, we have a completely new game. Ding wants to trade off the dark square bishops. We have c3 by Magnus, not interested in this, and here Ding just trades off everything. Captures, captures, and captures, captures. But this gives Magnus an excellent e5 outpost for his knight. So knight to c6, first putting some pressure on the d4 pawn, not allowing any quick knight to e5 plans, and now knight to b3, so the d4 pawn is nicely protected, and the Ding goes for a5. He wants to kick away one of the defenders of the d4 pawn, so it makes it harder for Carlsen to get an e5 outpost for his knight. So we have a3. And now just a4 by Ding. Knight to c1, preparing to shift the knight over to a2 and then to b4 or c3 if needed. And the bishop to d7. Ding continues development. We have knight to a2 and now knight to e4. Now Ding's the one who gets an excellent outpost for his knight. We have knight to c3, challenging this knight, and now queen to c7 by Ding. An extremely strong move, asking Carlsen, what do you do with the f4 pawn? How do you defend it? So do you go g3 or do you give up the f4 pawn? So here, after some minute consideration, Carlsen did go for g3. He defended his pawn, and now Ding just goes for knight captures on c3, b captures, and knight a5, going for that b3 square. So rook to c1, getting the rook, preparing the rook to go to c2. Knight to b3, Ding just continues with his plan, and rook to c2 now. The rook is looking kind of weird there, but if it works, why not? We have queen to d6. Now that everything is nicely set up for Ding, he wants to grab the a3 pawn, and there's not much Magnus can do about it. You can't go queen c1, you can go queen a1, the knight covers both of these squares, and you have to give up the a3 pawn. So Magnus continues development, bishop to d3, and Ding grabs the pawn. Queen captures on a3. We have castles by Magnus, and now Ding has now a passed a pawn. So if Carlsen doesn't figure out how to deal with some sort of an attack on the king side, the passed a pawn should prevail. So f6 by Ding, first not allowing any jumps with the knight, and now rook to e1. So it's a question: is this one of those positions where it's actually okay to play f6 or not? Ding castles here, and we have queen to b1 now. So what do you do here? There might be some plans of rook to a2 or maybe rook to b2 followed by bishop to c2 to maybe try and win back the pawn. But it's hard to say if winning back the pawn and trading off a lot of pieces will do good for Magnus, as he has the white pieces and he really needs a win. So I don't think he's very interested in the pawn. So queen back to d6. Now Ding wants to move this knight and start pushing his passed pawn. But rook c to e2 now, doubling up rooks on the e file, and it's not all that clear how do you get the knight away and start pushing this pawn. So first h6 by Ding, he creates some further weaknesses on the king side, but it is needed if you want to play something like f5, not to allow knight to g5. And here Magnus takes this opportunity to play f5 himself, which Ding allowed as he created some weaknesses. Here he's preparing knight to h4. So Ding goes for the pawn. We have e captures on f5, and now knight to h4, going for this pawn here. And now Ding just goes for rook a to e8, which seems like it's giving up too much material, but Ding has it all figured out. Here Magnus goes for knight captures on f5, which comes with an attack on the queen. And now if you move the queen, then just knight to e7 check will be extremely strong. So bishop captures on f5 with rook captures on e8 first. Now of course if you recapture, you're just lost. So knight to d2, this is the move that the Ding finds, and it's an extremely complicated move. As the queen is under attack, if the queen moves and doesn't defend the bishop, then you can play bishop captures on d3, knight to f3 check is an idea which will win the rook on e1. So here, before anything, first rook captures on f8 with check. We of course must start with this. And here Ding played king captures on f8. If you go for queen captures on f8, then queen to b5 is very strong, going for this pawn, and also this pawn will fall with check. And also you are just defending your bishop on d3, so this would be the idea. And after knight f3 check, king h1, knight captures here on e1, you can play bishop captures on f5, for example. And still there are all of these targets still remain here. Bishop to g6 will be an idea in the future, and the white's position will be great. So instead of queen captures, we have king captures by Ding, and now comes a move that is, well, there is only one move here that allows Carlsen to continue the game with some advantage, so feel free to pause the video and try to find this idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you that were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that the black king does not have all that many squares. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen captures on b7. Now, the point is, if you go for something like bishop captures on d3, you're immediately lost. Queen c8 check, king f7, and queen to e8 will be mate, as the pawns prevent the king from escaping. So Ding instead goes for knight to f3 check. We have king to h1, and now knight captures on e1, and Magnus just captures the bishop with bishop captures on f5. There is a slightly better disgusting engine line starting with queen to a8 check, but these things are too hard to spot. And after king f7, now you capture on f5, and now you won a tempo as the king is on f7. So whatever black does, let's say a3, you have this bishop to h7 move, which will win you the d5 pawn. You're just going to play bishop here with check, win the pawn, and be much better. However, that's not for us humans to find. Magnus played bishop captures on f5, and here Ding is doing very well. He just needs to play queen to e7, and the game continues. However, Ding seemingly decided to return the favor, and he played knight to f3. So once again, feel free to pause the video and now try and find a move that wins the game for Magnus, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the move that we've already discussed. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's well, queen to a8 check is nice, but bishop to g6 ends the game immediately, as there is no defense against queen to f7 mate. You could waste a few moves. Ding played knight to g5, so it prevents it for a moment, but after queen to c8 check, it was in this position that Ding Liren resigned the game, and Magnus Carlsen equalizes the match. And now we'll see what happens in game 4. Will it be a decisive game, or will it be a draw, and then we go into the blitz mini matches? So here you resign because there is nothing to do. You either give up the queen, or you go here, and then it's just queen to e8 checkmate. So yeah, after queen c8 he resigned, and what a weird matchup. First Carlsen blunders that terrible king h7 move, then Ding returns the favor here with knight to f3, allowing bishop to g6. So really crazy stuff. Both of them must be very nervous about this matchup. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Steven Bukowski, Alexander Deutsch, Squeaky Clean, Simon Heath, and Juan Vicente Alvarez for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Magnus Invitational until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Saturday.